going on, everybody? Welcome to another Horror Franchise Wednesday. Let's talk about Critters 3, starring Leonardo DiCaprio himself in his film debut. This movie came out in 1991, I want to say, and it tells the story about this family moving or getting back from their vacation at the Grand Canyon, going back to their apartment, and along the way, they go to this rest stop. A critter lays eggs in their truck. They bring those eggs to their apartment, and then the eggs hatch, and the critters are attacking this apartment complex, this apartment building, and that's the story. So, this movie is extremely boring. That's the biggest problem with this movie. It's just, it's boring. And it's the shortest movie of the franchise. You take away the little recap at the beginning, the black screen credits in the open, that whole like 10-minute like post credit sequence that's just, it keeps freeze framing and shit. And you take away all that, the real story of this movie is probably like an hour. It's just a short movie, but it feels long because it's boring. It's filled with all this unnecessary character drama that's not interesting, not original, not well written or acted, and you don't care about any of these people. You got the worst father in any movie I've ever seen. He's just an unsympathetic dick to these kids when they need him most. Like, he's just so anxious to leave. Like, he just wants to say goodbye and like, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna go ride this train for money, and you go spend time with the neighbors who just so happen to be Happy Gilmore's grandma and some other guy. Like, he just doesn't give a shit about his kids. Like, you got a dead mom, the daughter is like 15 or 16, and she's already gonna have to like get a job to provide for the family, and he is just constantly like ignoring her. She just wants to play games with him and be a family again because ever since mom died, they've just been broken. She just wants to be a family again, and he just doesn't give a shit. He's just an asshole, and all this character drama is just boring. They give you two characters that you automatically hate. They're evil and they're the only ones that die. It's got a very low body count, just like the first one, except the first one's way better than this one. Now, the critters in this movie, they're the only interesting, fun thing about it. But comparing it to the other movies, the critters in this film have maybe like 5 minutes of screen time. They don't really do anything different. They don't bring anything new to the table in this movie. They're not create like, it's like their creative juices were just gone and they did some of the same shit from before. Let's just put them in the kitchen and they'll start eating things and burping and it'll be funny. It's not funny. There's nothing in here that really made me laugh. It's not entertaining like the second one. The first two are the only critter movies that I can recommend watching. 3 and 4 are just unnecessary sequels, and it doesn't even like tie into the first two, but it pathetically like tries to give it some connective tissue by shoehorning Charlie's character into the film at the tail ends when it was not needed at all. It just makes it convenient as hell when he pops up. Like, why is he at this rest stop area at this park? Why does he give this one family this crystal that turns green when critters are around? Like, does he have multiple crystals that he's just handing out like flyers? Or is it just the one crystal? If it's just the one, it's convenient that he hands it to the one family that he met that just so happens to get attacked by critters that night, and the critters place their eggs on that family's like RV. Convenient. And then he just pops up at the end. He's barely in here. He doesn't need to be in here. For some reason, he has like this Tarzan scream that he does like twice. It's so eye rolly and stupid. It's not funny. Nothing in this movie is funny. I haven't even looked at my notes yet. I've just been bitching. It's just a boring movie. The dialogue was just weak. It's like poorly written, poorly acted. And this movie was written by the guy who wrote Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and The Beginning, the prequel to the remake. Now, this also is just so low scale, like small scale, and like obviously a low ass budget. And they knew they were gonna make a fourth one. This has that like Back to the Future 2 to be continued ending. It's like, why wouldn't you just make that movie instead? Or get all the money for one good movie. Why would you split the money into making two shitty films when you could have just used all the funds to make at least one decent film? You know what I mean? Instead of breaking it off into two. It's just like a stepping stone to something else. Like, they had this idea to go to space, but they needed to make this whole third movie to get this explanation out at the end about how they're gonna get there and why. Like, we need to save these 2 eggs, and it's just it's just a boring movie. It's so unoriginal. The first two are good. This one is just rinse and repeat, but much more boring and not creative at all. The critters are the only positive thing about this movie. Like, you put these critters in the city, and it seems like they were marketing this movie like it was gonna be like more, bigger scale. They're gonna go to the city because the first two are located in like this small town of like what, like 100 people or some shit. Like, it's a small community. Everybody knows each other. Word gets around fast, and then this one, they go from small town community in Kansas to some big city. It looks like, and we just go in this little apartment complex, this little building. They only explore like a couple of rooms in this building. Like, they could have explored more of the city. They could have made it like way bigger, wreak havoc on the town. But you don't get that in this one. You actually get that in the second one with the big ball rolling down Main Street. This film should have done that, but on a bigger level.
In 2 tournaments, I've seen her shoot those 300 games, so she can throw the strike.
I already said it before, this movie is not funny, but I feel like they were trying to make it extremely like scary and suspenseful the way some scenes play out. The music, it's like taking itself way too serious, it seemed. When the second one was so comedic, the first one was like an even blend. The second one tipped the scales more to the comedy route, and this one they wanted to go back to the first one except be a little bit more serious with little hints of comedy throughout that didn't land or work for me at all. So yeah, my only positive for the movie is the critters. They look slightly different in the face, but they're still similar to the first one. They use their needles a lot in this one, a lot more than usual. For some reason, in this movie, the needles, they don't knock you out immediately when they, hit your neck. Like in the first one, when Dee Wallace got hit, she fell immediately, like knocked out. In this one, you got 2 characters who get stuck with like 6 needles in their arm and in their neck, and they're still like crawling around for like a half hour, and then slowly, like, there's no continuity with how these needles that the porcupine things, whatever you call them, they keep calling the critters in this movie like rats. Even when they see them, they call them rats. It's like, get the fuck out of here, that's not a rat. So yeah, that's my only positive with the movie, is that the critters are somewhat entertaining, but nowhere near as entertaining as they've been before. So final thoughts: very disappointing, unnecessary sequel that shoehorns a character from the first two that doesn't even need to be in here. It's got lazy writing, some bad acting, not likable characters, uninteresting drama, and critters that don't really do much that's noteworthy. That's not anything new. They don't bring anything new to the table. It's just a blah, boring film. So when it comes to Critters 3, you are what they eat. This movie is wasted time. Alright, spoiler discussion. So we open up with this family, they're driving an RV, and they seem happy at first, but that's the last you'll see them happy. For the rest of the movie, it's just character drama and drama, drama, drama. Just lots of drama and crying. And so RV gets a flat, they pull over at this rest stop, and just conveniently, there's Leonardo DiCaprio and his family. Like, where is this place, by the way? It seems miles outside of their city, and they just so happen to crash and park at this park that where Leonardo DiCaprio and his dad are, or a stepdad, and the stepdad just so happens to be the guy who owns this family's apartment building and is going to evict them. It just seems very coincidental that those people just so happen to meet up, and they're going to meet up again at the end. And it's just a coincidence that Charlie just so happens to be there at this place miles outside of Grover's Bend, and he just pops out of the ground like there's just like this springboard down there. He just jumps up like a trampoline, or like a cannon shot him out of the fucking ground doing a Tarzan scream. And they give you this unnecessary recap of like the first 2 movies. Like, here's what happened, kids. We don't need to know. If you're watching Critters 3, you've probably seen the first 2. And he says that the year was 1984 when he's telling his story. Yeah, that's the year the film was being made, but it was released in 86. And then even later on, when the grandpa, if he is the grandpa, I think he's just their neighbors down the hall. This old guy is telling the story again, and he says 1986, and then tells the story about the second movie and says 1988. That's more accurate, not Charlie's story. And you think Charlie would have a more accurate description of when and how shit went down in the first movie than this guy who doesn't even live in Grover's Bend. But whatever, I digress. So we get this critter POV shot, and it sounds like the critter's dying. It sounds like he's like having an asthma attack or something. And he just lays a bunch of eggs inside like the RV underneath it. So where did this critter come from? In the second one, they're all dead. This movie does not explain why there's more. There's just more out there. So you just gotta look past it, I guess. And then we get this crystal gift that's given to the little boy, who I think was in kindergarten cop, if I'm not mistaken. So why the gift? Why this family? Do you have multiple crystals? It just seems convenient also that you are giving it to the one family that is going to be attacked. So then we get the typical strict stepdad douchebag drinking like a little fancy drink with an umbrella in it. What a bitch. And so yeah, then there's eggs in the car. So then we get this car crash. His brakes are severed, like the brake line's severed. He can't hit the brakes, and he doesn't really seem all that worried about that afterwards. Like, who cut my brake lines? Doesn't even question it. It's like, whatever. But he crashes into the back of a truck filled with this guy who's being evicted's belongings. Like, this guy's being evicted from his apartment, and now the only thing he has left is this truck and the shit that's in the back of it. It gets crashed into, all the shit flies out, car destroyed, and he's just like, whatever. Like, he's just so cool about it. It's like, wow. Very nice guy. And then we see Happy Gilmore grandma in the movie. Happy Gilmore's grandma. And then we meet the punk mechanic, and I cannot stand his accent. Just very over-the-top character. He's been in a lot of movies, but then he gets killed, and it's one of two kills in the movie. It's very lame. He just gets the critter ball on his stomach, and he starts rolling around. He just can't get the fucker off. For some reason, these critters are just so powerful, you can't overpower them. Even though they're so fucking small, you would think that you could just take it off of you. But nope. And then the lady with the bunny slippers, she's putting like laundry down a laundry chute. And even though the critter is like screaming as it's rolling up towards her, and we even get a shot of like her looking down, she for some reason didn't see it, and she didn't hear it when it was screaming on the way up and on the way down when she knocked it back down. So that's just another little nitpick. So yeah, and it's just, again, I have it written down. It's like a coincidence that the stepdad of Leonardo DiCaprio's character owns this building, and they just so happen to have bumped into each other at that random like rest stop miles outside of town. Coincidence. So, and then like this, we got this whole like subplot going on with this stepdad. He's got to close this building and like rebuild it or something, but he's got to like pay all these people to leave, but he doesn't want to pay them. He wants to like force them to leave on their own, so he doesn't have to pay them. So he's hiring this mechanic to put rats in the building and ruin the elevator or ruin all these things to make it miserable to live there. So yeah, just a dick. You want him to die. He cuts the phone lines and the power, so now they can't call for help once the critters attack. And so yeah, they get what they deserved, obviously. And we get the whole like, I wish you were dead, and then they die right after that. Leo, for some reason, the stepdad brought his stepson to help him with his crimes. Like, I'm sure what he's doing is illegal. He's destroying this apartment building, trying to get him to leave. He's like, come on, son, let me teach you how to be a fucking cheapskate criminal like me. But yeah, I like when he dies, because he deserves it, but it's off camera. I wish you were dead, Dad. Shuts the door for some reason. You know, he's that victim that gets frozen in shock. He doesn't, like, immediately get out of the room. He doesn't even go for the door at all. Then the crystal turns green, implying that the critters are around. And then, yeah, we get this, like, laundry room attack, and now, all of a sudden, the critters are, like, allergic to bleach. When bleach gets on them, they start, like, melting away. So we got, like, this stripe critter, kind of like in Gremlins. You got the one with the striped hair. This one has like a white mohawk thing going on because of the bleach, and it's like got like a scar on its face now to give it a little bit more of a personality. You even got one that has like this opera singing ability. It's like starts screaming real loud, breaking glass, and his name's Blackie. They don't use the subtitles as much in this one as they did in the first two. They only say like 4 things in this movie. They say desserts, and then they say PU and uh-oh, and those two we didn't need subtitles for because you hear it. You don't need subtitles when it's so clearly them saying PU and uh-oh. The subtitles were not necessary with those two. And then the fourth one they say, Blackie's in trouble. So they named a critter Blackie in this movie. Kind of racist, but so yeah, they're like shooting the porcupine needles at the bunny. They're scared of bunnies now, or they hate bunnies for some reason. And so then the stepdad dies. We already talked about that. He cuts the power. Bad timing for them. And then the needles, like I said, take forever to like knock them out now. They're just, it's like giving them amnesia because they're like forgetting who people are. Like, who are you again? So I guess they're like adding new side effects to the needles in this movie. And then we get this interesting critter kill with the flare in the mouth, and you actually like see like the skeletal system inside when its like belly's glowing, which I thought was kind of neat. And then the critter falls in the laundry room, sets the whole bottom basement level of the apartment building on fire. So now they're going to the roof, the building's on fire. Meanwhile, there's critters in the kitchen. They're eating beans, farting, drinking like soap and burping bubbles. That's the only entertaining thing about the critters in this movie. And it's like a scene that you've seen in part 2, where they're at the diner, eating food, farting, laying on the frying pans and shit. Like, it's not anything new. But it was still the only thing that was like, hey, that's kind of fun. Everything else was not fun in this movie. So, yeah. And then we get like this chick who's just like this phone lady. She works for the phone company. She falls off the roof and she's like hanging by a cord right above the ground. There's like a phone booth right there. And she keeps like swaying back and forth trying to reach the phone. And the whole time she's like, oh, no, yes, no, and she won't shut the fuck up. It's like, come on, just stop it. It's such a stupid thing. Like, she couldn't like bend over, like she has like no abdominal muscles at all. She's that weak. She can't like reach and like untie herself or do anything really. Was it that hard to get out of that situation? Was it that hard to grab the phone? It just keeps cutting back to that. It's supposed to be funny, but it's just annoying, the amount of noise that she's making while she's doing it and what she's saying. Just like, shut up, please, shut the fuck up. And then Charlie comes back and does nothing really, but like he has this gun, it breaks and jams, and all of a sudden, Aimee Brooks' character, I forget her name, she's like an expert with this alien weapon. Like, it's a alien futuristic gun that Charlie still has, and she like knows how to reload it for him. It's like, how is that possible? And I like that Happy Gilmore grandma chick. I don't know her name. She's Happy Gilmore's grandma. She has like the 100 Tears like meat cleaver from that movie. It's like a gigantic meat cleaver. It actually kind of made me laugh. And she chops one of the critters in half. And one of the critters, the last one, it gets to the roof and it wants to attack the kid. Like, it sees all the victims up there, potential victims. He's like, which one do I go for? I'm going to go for the 6-year-old standing next to the ledge. I'm going to push his ass over, which is absolutely cruel. And it starts like spinning, like it's like an engine revving, like the tires spinning, and it's like making that tire sound. And then all of a sudden, the critter starts sparking, as if that's possible. And then it darts for the little kid to push him off the roof. But then Charlie comes in, Tarzan screaming, and saves the kid, falls off the roof. You think he's dead, but he's not. He lived once again, just like part 2. She's like, it's just this reoccurring thing where you think Charlie's dead, but then he comes back. I wish they would just fucking kill him at this point. So then, like, the city's completely vacant, and we have the slowest fire department like response time. Like, the apartment's on fire for so long before they get there, and it's just convenient that, despite the fact that it's not really that late in the movie, if you think about it, it's probably not even midnight yet. No one's driving by, no one's walking by in that city to see the fire, to call it in. Like, really? So, yeah. And then that's really the end of it. They live. And then there's this sequel set up with like the freeze frame credits. It just, why freeze frame? Just play the whole thing and then give us the credit scroll. It was just kind of annoying waiting for the whole thing to finish. It just kept playing like 3 seconds and then it would freeze frame for like a good 5 seconds and then play another few seconds of this ending and then freeze frame again. It's like, just play the fucking thing. Let's get it over with. So annoying. And yeah, so it sets up the sequel. They're going to go to space with these last 2 critter eggs because they got to save these 2 eggs. They've spent 3 movies trying to exterminate these little fuckers, and now all of a sudden it's important that we keep them alive. We can't make them go extinct. We gotta keep at least one of them alive so we can just put them in a jail somewhere like in the first one. Why? Just kill them. Their only purpose, it seems, is to create chaos and eat people and whatever they can get their hands on. Why save that species? It's not worth it. There's no explanation about why we need them still. They're not important for the environment. Just kill those fuckers. But yeah, that's the end of the movie. The clap award for best scene in this film is the kitchen scene with the critters eating beans, farting and shit. It's similar stuff from the second movie, but it's honestly the only good thing in this film, so definitely the best scene. The Mr. Hat award for best kill is one of 2 kills, and that's Frank, the annoying mechanic who gets attacked in the basement. And Mr. Twig award for lamest kill is the only other kill in the film, and that's the evil stepdad douchebag who gets killed off camera and got what he deserved. And those are my thoughts on Critters 3. What did you think about this movie? Have you seen it yet? Put all your thoughts of it in the comments below. If you have not seen it, do not watch it. It's not worth it. Just watch the first 2. That's all you need to see. So, thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button, share it with all your friends, and become a Patreon for as little as $1 a month to request movie reviews and support this channel to help it grow. And you can become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.